All right, so here we are, week 1. I am at the Lockfathers Country Lock and Key in Hayden, Idaho here. And over the past several months, there's been a lot of issues between the dispatch and his techs. And I don't know, like if I could describe it, it's kind of like the Hatfield and McCoys would be the best term I could use to talk about it. And as we've been kind of talking about it here and there, I was like, hey Dad, how about let's go in, let's try to fix this, at least facilitate it, see if we can't make some 5-10% improvements and maybe solve the problem. Some I think are actually unavoidable, but the good news is he has a awesome staff and he has a lot of great people, and I think it's really just a matter of sitting some people down and just talking through some of it and maybe putting a little bit of a game plan together and implementing some systems of some sort. I think we can really make a lot of improvements. So my dad has chosen a dispatcher.
I'm Haley and I do dispatching.
And a service tech to kind of represent the techs.
I'm Javon. I'm a locksmith of about 30 years.
For this first meeting, and we're gonna dive in, we're gonna see what's gonna happen. And I told him, I was like, I have one thing in order for me to do this, which is if we fail, we still have to publish it. So we're all on the hook here. We're gonna publish it no matter what. And I hope not only you'll get some entertainment out of it, but maybe some ideas for your own business.
Well, this is about dispatch because we've had a lot of problems with our dispatching, receiving the call and then putting it in to schedule the guys to go out to work. Something's not communicating, and the dispatch aren't locksmiths. They answer the phone, give a rough estimate, and then they put it in to whoever's capable of doing the job. They've got a bunch of flack back from the techs saying, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Well, we have to solve this problem once and for all, because makes it a big issue. I've lost people because of it. I'm Pete Slauson, and I own Country Lock and Key, or I should say president. PJ asked us to do these films to help everybody else, because we need help too, just like the next guy.
So I want to take a minute and just thank both Haley and Javon for coming on and be willing to talk about this in front of the camera. I know it's kind of weird, right? At the same time though, I want to make sure that we're clear about the fact that Javon, you're kind of representing all of the techs in the company.
Right.
And Haley, you're representing all of the dispatchers in the company. As we go through and dig in, we're not talking about a problem or issues that arise between Haley and Javon. Right. We're talking about problems that happen in dispatching and with the techs out in the field.
I've worked at multiple different locksmiths throughout the 30 years, and every one of them seems to have issues with dispatch and technicians arguing with dispatchers, and you got dispatchers that don't know locksmithing and locksmiths that don't know dispatching, and it's always a conflict.
I think sometimes, as a technician, we have to take responsibility for ourselves, because I think a lot of times the communication about the job going long, communication about, hey, this is more than what we expected, doesn't get communicated to dispatch. And so then they are unaware. So when they're unaware, now the next job just goes on like scheduled, and then here I am going way farther than I should be. And if that call doesn't get made right off the bat, then it could mess up your entire day.
They're on the job for an hour and a half already, and then they call and say, well, I can't do anything because I didn't think it was going to take this long. There's more problems I'm running into. So it's best if you're able to sort of look at everything first and then call in if it's going to change anything.
Right, which is exactly, I usually, every job I do, I walk in and do a brief check of, show me exactly what you need done.
Right.
And hopefully at that point I can see any potential issues, and that also is going to vary on experience. You get a new guy out there, he's not going to know.
Right.
And he's going to run into problems. But if you get somebody that's been doing this a while, they should be able to evaluate most issues beforehand, before you even get into the job.
Right.
So I think, at that point, that's when you should be making the call, when you first have walked in. And, instead of doing one lock and then letting somebody show you the next lock and then show you that, you got to have let's
walk through like you said.
You have to have a full picture of the job.
Now, do you think there's some optimism kind of goes into that? Like, have you ever showed up to a job and it's like, okay, it's a little more than I thought. I have about an hour to do it. I think I can get it done, right? And then you're like 2 locks in, 30 minutes later, and you're like, this is a problem.
Yeah, we got a little pride there. I mean, that happens because, and I think it even happens with me sometimes. And I have to be honest, I'm a horrible estimator of my own time. I am. I will tell somebody like, oh, I'm sure I can get this done in a half hour. Then here I am picking away at it because, I try and do quality work, and sometimes making that quality work happen sometimes takes me a little longer than I think that it's going to take. So,
do you think that there's a element of when you or a tech goes to a job and you realize it's going to take more than the dispatcher allotted? Okay. Do you think there's a little bit of like, when you have to call them and say that this job's going to take longer, you feel like it's making you look bad or like you failed?
I don't personally, but I can see that some guys might. When I call in, I'm assuming that everybody knows I got the experience to evaluate what I need to do. So I don't really get too worried about it. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but I could see people that have less experience may have that issue.
Yeah, because they're essentially, to some degree, might feel like they're failing.
Correct.
And they're not doing let's call it a good job.
Right.
Because they're having to call Haley or someone and be like, I'm not going to be able to get this done. And now this causes a big problem that we have to start calling other customers. Right. And so it's like, listen, because I can't get it done in this time, I'm like cascading a whole bunch of other problems.
Right.
Someone else might have to pick up the slack or do the other job. Now they might be upset with me.
Right.
So Haley, from your point of view, what do you feel like is kind of at the root of some of the problems that happen between the scheduling and dispatch and the techs?
For me, it's sometimes not all the techs communicate as well as others. So I'll have a couple be really, really informative and let me know, hey, I need more time. Let's push back these jobs. This job on Thursday, I need more time for that. Any questions that I have, I can usually ask them too. But for others, I can see it being more of a challenge that they don't give me as much information. And then that tends to be where conflicts happen.
Okay, because so they haven't communicated what's going on with that job. Next thing you know, they should be at the next one.
I've had that happen in the past. Yeah.
Okay. Those are the type of problems that we're talking about?
Yes.
Or do you have some techs they just simply don't communicate at all?
It depends on the day, but it does happen.
Do you think by all of us working together that we can improve?
Possibly. I think if communication is there, there's room for improvement.
And some, like Siobhan was saying, the pride, I can get this done, it's like, and they don't call. So now they're going to be late for every job after. But they never contacted Haley, dispatch, and then the customer's upset because they were supposed to be here between this time and that time and they're not there.
Yeah.
So it's a vicious circle what we're trying to solve.
Okay. And so I have a kind of a bunch of questions I'd like to ask both of you, or everybody really. But before I do that, I'm most curious because the benefit I have is that I'm not emotionally involved in this, right?
That's true.
At the same time, that can really hinder. It can benefit as much as it could not help, right? And so where I think the real answers lie that I want to get into a little bit is what do you think we could start doing differently that would help tremendously?
Maybe they need to buy your Starbucks coffee more often.
Right, yeah. They gotta come bearing gifts.
Hey, note to all techs out there.
Yeah.
Get your dispatcher's presents. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Pro tip.
Yeah, exactly.
I think just, being as informative as you can. You can never have too much information, to be honest, because I'm ignorant with locksmithing.
Right.
But I am very knowledgeable with the computers.
Right.
And vice versa. Not everybody is as gifted with computers. So
I'm one of them.
that's okay.
So I think for me, it's a matter of technicians just given the information. It's exactly what she's saying. You know, I've got to be capable of being honest and saying this is my honest evaluation of this, not get prideful and think, oh, I can get this done. You know, I want to do a quality job, and this is what it's going to take, and give her dispatch that information as soon as possible. Because if you wait till the last minute, or if you're watching your clock and it's 12:30 and you were supposed to be done at 12:30, you don't want to make the call then, because now the next person's already been waiting for you, or likely is, and now you're messing up that whole schedule down the line. So it's really a matter of communication. We've got to have accurate communication between the technicians and dispatch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, yeah, I agree, but when the technician gets done, they need to call or text them saying, hey, I'm done,
Right.
headed to the next job, so they know where they're at in their day.
Right. That too. Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't. I always call in and say, okay, I'm done. That one took way too long, because, you know, if it's a lockout, the door handle on a car is broken, and they don't tell you that.
Right.
You know, so you have to go do the other side.
So, I mean, then I'm guessing, you know, we haven't really talked about this, but I'm guessing any sort of solutions and fixes are zero cost.
What do you mean?
Like implementing like a new system that costs money isn't a no? Or like,
Well, you know me. I wanna be efficient.
yeah,
Because there's some things we have in place what is great,
yeah.
and other things what we pay for, I think is the biggest waste of money.
Okay. So, I mean, at this point, we'll just keep it no cost, use what we have.
And see if that's the best solution, unless there's something better, because it doesn't make a difference what it costs if we're spending all our money going back and forth,
Yeah.
you know, having problems.
Mhm.
So we need solution.
Okay.
And if that means I have to cough up another buck or two, only a buck or two, that we can solve the problem. Because I'm in it for the long term. I want everything to go smooth.
Yeah.
I think we have a good chance of making some improvements. I think I don't know with the other places I've worked and all the issues that I've seen, if anybody's really went into detail to really try and sort these issues out. I mean, it's maybe a little issue here or there, trying to sort it out as things come, but to really just try and overhaul dispatch and how relations with technicians. I don't know if anybody's. So I think we have a good chance. I think we can do it. Yeah.
When we get a job, like someone calls in, how do you know what tech to send it to?
Well, if it's vehicles, we have a couple technicians that are more gifted in vehicles than, you know, a new guy or, you know, whoever. So I try and gauge which ones is in the area, and then I'll send it to the closest one. Like commercial buildings, I'll send it to the ones that have like more knowledge in those or is more gifted in those.
Okay. And how do you know that?
Just what I've observed over the years.
Okay. What type of a window do we give customers to arrive in?
I always give a half-hour window verbally, but I will put in the schedule the exact time I start the conversation with. Like if I say we'll be there between 9 and 9:30, then I'd schedule it for 9.
Okay.
But they have that half-hour give.
They have that
Yeah.
half hour again?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's long away, you put drive time and then the job starts.
Yes.
Because
Like
some
if
of them
it's-
are 100 miles or more away.
Yeah.
Right.
On the average, how are you estimating how long a job will take?
Well, for lockouts, usually it's like a half hour for the technician. That's like the latest I've seen it go.
What about like a rekey or deadbolt installation, master key system setup, MX setup, Medico?
High security ones, I give a little bit more time, but usually it's anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how many locks.
And how do you guys make the determination based on how many locks?
Well, we've been informed by the technicians that usually averages 10 minutes per lock for them to rekey it, take it off the doors and rekey it. So we do 10 minutes per lock out in the field.
And is there anywhere that all of this is written down?
Yes and no. Some of the stuff, it is written down. Other stuff is just learned as you go.
So how much of the times and all of that is documented?
I mean, I just have the sheet that one of our technicians gave us for all he's head of dispatch, so I have the sheet that he gave us that he has given a range for times type deal.
And how often do you think the time that you're allotting right now is accurate?
60 to 75% of the time.
What would you say on that?
That's probably accurate. I mean, I think that's a pretty good gauge. You know, hearing her say that though makes me think that, you know, it should be better than that. But there's always problems that happen. Meaning that we should be able to narrow that down into a more accurate. I mean, 60%, that's almost half the time, you know, and so only half the time we're getting that right.
It can cause some tension.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, so that means that, yeah, what can we do to make it better so that you maybe get it up to 80% of the time or something like that?
Let's say you have a job to set up tomorrow. Okay, someone calls in and you look and there are 5 techs available. Let's pretend none of them have anything.
Okay.
Who do you choose to give the job to?
Depends on what the job is.
Okay.
If it's a simple rekey, then it's whoever's closest.
Okay.
Then that's kind of what I do. If it's something that technician is more familiar with than maybe the others, then I'd give it to them, even if it is a bit of a drive.
Okay.
And it's not like we send new technicians out by themselves. They ride with another guy quite a few times before we actually, okay, here we go try. You know, if you have an issue, call.
Yeah, and so do you have a list of all the technician skills for each technician?
No, I don't anymore. It's not as accurate as what I had when I first started.
Okay, so let's say there's a 3 rekey job. You set it up for 9:30, about an hour, right? Based on what you were saying.
Yeah.
So how are you calculating when that next job should start? Because of course there could be drive time associated with that. Like, if you just kind of explain what that looks like.
Yeah, so each technician has their own home base. So like we have a couple technicians here in Hayden, one in Coeur d'Alene, a few in Post Falls. So I'll try and engage them in the same area and then I give them like a half-hour drive time before the next job. If it's further, then I'll try and give that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we get like MX-13 or Medico, we know we have to cut, you know, we have paperwork in each of the vans for new accounts, but like Medico, the shops only have the machines that cut the keys, because it might be 20 keys. So they realize they have to set it a day back so the guys in the shop can cut the keys to get them moving and numbered.
Right.
Sure.
To do for the tech to go out and do it.
It'll be interesting. You know, this is a problem that I think a lot of people have. Small operations, big operations, and I definitely don't think I have all the answers, but I'm definitely willing to try to dive deep, and maybe we'll find some improvements, and maybe we'll all get to the end of this and be like, well, we tried.
I think just the last thing I'd like to talk about just briefly is how often do you techs show up to a job and they realize that it's not like there was a broken lock or something, right? And they show up and they see the lock and they're like, oh, I have nothing on my van to work on this, right? Like those type of scenarios. How often is that?
Oh, I think probably every day. There's
Every day,
something like that. Yeah, where, I mean, because we can't carry everything, and, and there's a lot of odd things that you find. So I will have to go out and then I look at the job, find out it's more of a survey than an actual job that we can complete.
A couple other issues what we run into is that when the customer calls, they give them a rough price because you can't see what they got. And then it comes out to be, you know, $40 more and the customer's screaming. I always tell the techs, well, look at it, see if it jives with the price you were given or they were quoted. And if it's going to be a little different, let them know up front before you get done with the job.
Are we formally quoting a customer? Like, are we sending them an estimate? Like,
Only on bigger jobs.
Like, so someone calls up, they want our rekey. We're able to type up what they described to us that lists out, 5 rekeys, this, that, whatever's on there, and then we email them that. So they have like a record of like, this is what was quoted. Like, this many locks, this many keys, whatever it is, to kind of keep everybody on the same page.
All the techs on the have it on their phone when they show them that. This is what you were quoted because that's the information they received.
I think the problem though is that's us continuing just to tell them verbally and not actually see what was, it's not in writing.
Yeah, I don't see how that's really possible for a residential rekey.
Because currently we're doing it as technicians, we're the ones doing the quotes, and then I'll hand them over to Haley once I've written everything out. Basically, she transfers it and emails it.
Now, would it be possible in the system that you're using that instead of you creating the invoice on the job, dispatch would create an estimate for that job that you would actually just pull up at the job and turn that into a invoice and make any changes?
Oh, that's basically connected to the invoice itself, so that I can bill them out using that original estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when they quote the job, they fill it all out, put all the stuff in there. They can email it to the customer.
Right.
They can see it. They know exactly what they're looking at. And then when you get to that job, in your ticket, it has the job, let's call it the invoice number, the estimate number. You type that in. If there's nothing needs to be changed, you just hit, invoice.
Right.
And then collect the payment.
Converts it into an invoice.
Yeah.
And then collect
Or if you
the
need to make changes, you make changes, but the customer will be able to see compared to like what was quoted compared to what was billed.
Right.
Would be different on that.
Right.
list.
Right. Yeah, it would be different. And I think that would streamline things on the technician's end, of course, because then I'm not writing in everything.
Yeah.
I'm not rewriting a bunch of information that's already been established.
Yeah.
But
Would that be helpful?
Oh, it is helpful. I mean, even in the ones that we do currently, it's helpful to be able to show my customer, like, okay, here's what we listed out. The other thing is too, is again, if I go out on site, now I see there's a different problem that maybe I didn't foresee, I can let them know right off the bat that there's an issue there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could happen.
We've talked about a lot of stuff, and I think we can kind of start doing a few things and see if we can't start improving the process.
Coming up in the next video, we're gonna start actually trying to fix the problems. We're gonna work on making sure the pricing guide is good. We're gonna start making sure that the time allotment for each type of job or work, whether it's a rekey or a deadbolt install, we're gonna make sure that we have a good time allotment for those. And then we're gonna create a list that has all of the technicians that are listing each one of their job skills. That way, when a new technician shows up or a type of job that comes up that isn't very often, they're gonna be able to know exactly who to send. So hey, if you're enjoying this video and like weird things like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way, when a new video rolls out, you'll be able to see it. Congrats, you've made it to the end. Now, I wanna make sure that when you are commenting on our videos that you include the hashtag LockBoss. When you do, you automatically get entered in to win one of 5 free prizes we give away every Tuesday live here on YouTube. So I look forward to reading your comment and responding soon. Until next time.